All right. So you're back from the Blackface Festival in South Africa,
Hmm.
and how was it?
It was all right. We kept showing the N-word too.
All right, so welcome back, guys, for the Republic. This is another great episode for you guys. Candy Deep, as I just mentioned, you're not paying attention. Just came back from the Blackface Festival in South Africa, or I think the Congo, whichever one. And we're going to talk about some other, not a lot of topics. I mean, we already did an episode, so where I did the most of the big topics. So kind of we're going to take a little break from big political topics. We're going to talk about just like social stuff, you know. You're going to talk about the gays, right? Because you love the gays and the trans, and the non-binaries.
Oh yeah, man, I do love the gays and the non-binaries. I love my own people.
And then we're going to talk about what we're going to talk about Charlemagne the not god, Charlemagne the fag, from the Breakfast Club, because that's like the gayest name for a radio. That's like also the gayest name for like these like supposedly like urban manly people or like tough people. They call themselves the Breakfast Club. Like that's kind of the gayest name I ever heard for a supposedly for a radio show that has supposedly tough guy personalities, because that's what they promote themselves as. They think they're like tough and street. They're like, oh, we're from the hood. And say, yeah, but they call themselves the Breakfast Club. That's like Andrew Tate and
And
all
he
these
has a
other.
family.
Yeah, it's like, but it's like as if like all these like workout dudes have this show, and it's like, oh, we're gonna call ourselves the Breakfast Club, like this like some '90s show. Like, what the fuck is this? Like, what? The Breakfast
Yeah,
Club?
that's copyright infringement. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of them that have that same name.
Yeah. Now they that's the radio show, so they can get away with that kind of stuff. But
Isn't Charlemagne like a isn't it like an ancient Greek kind of name?
Charlemagne is was a monarch after the Romans, and he conquered most of
Ah,
what the Romans did. So his name was Charlemagne. His name was Charlemagne the Great, I think, or Charlemagne something. But he was kind of like a Roman Empire emperor, but he really wasn't. Um,
so I'm assuming that's where he got the name from.
yeah, most likely, but he probably won't say it. So, and I'm sure they're gonna try to call
No,
themselves.
no,
I'm
what you
sure they're
talking
gonna,
about? I was the one that created the name.
yeah, and I'm sure they're probably gonna want to be like, Charlemagne was black. It's like, no, Charlemagne was German, pretty much, or French,
Hmm.
German
Right.
French. I mean, and he was like, yeah, and what he did, he was like after the Roman Empire fell, pretty much. He was like the first big emperor of like of Western Europe because he conquered all those places. Like he was the king of Germans and Franks and stuff and Carthage, so all that type of stuff. So he like had a lot of territory. So he was like the big. He was like after the Roman Empire fell, he was like the big one of the biggest conquerors in Europe. So he was just called Charlemagne.
Hmm.
Charlemagne something, probably Charlemagne the Great. They usually call themselves that, Charlemagne the Great, the Great. And
Great.
so now he's trying to take that, but here, you know how they always do. They're going to try to spin it as if this is like this is actually like pro black. Like Charlemagne is actually a black thing, but it's not.
Oh, it's a
It's
black
about the
culture name.
culture. It's all about the culture, but it's not about the culture. So since we
Just
since
like
you
how they
mentioned
took
Charlemagne,
just like how they took dreads.
yeah, just like dreads and like how they like to say that like fried chicken and mac and cheese and collard greens is like black culture. It's like no, you guys took that from the white slave owners who you learned that from. It's actually Southern, but since you guys came from the South, you adopted it as your own. It's like I never forget that one time where LeBron was talking about how LeBron was pretty much talking about like how Gucci and like Versace were like a part of black culture, and I'm just like, what? No, black,
Ah,
and that was like the funniest thing to me.
that's so
It has
dumb.
nothing to do with them. It has nothing to do with them. Nothing. So it's like the most
Hmm.
hilarious thing, anyways. So since you started off with Charlemagne, I guess we're gonna talk about that because he had Larry Elder on, and I don't understand like how do people like do how do they, I guess, like they like having him on, but they don't like what he says, and so then they pretend as if this is all for content. So um let's just put this side us here because this is gonna be on full. All
One
right.
thing I gotta say about Elder is that he shouldn't run for president.
I
honestly.
mean, yeah, the fact that he's, I mean, technically he's not, because who the fuck is?
Have you ever heard of the term nigga wake up call?
No.
It is an incident where a person of color forgets that they are of color and are reminded rather brutally by an unexpected act of racism. Have you ever had any of those?
Oh, brother.
I'm just asking. You think you've ever
Well,
had
I'm acutely aware, Charlamagne, that I'm a black person, just as you are a black person. And when Joe Biden insulted you by saying, you ain't really black, we don't know whether or not you want to vote for me or vote for Donald Trump, it seems to me that should have been a wake-up call on your part. How dare this guy come in here and insult you, a black man, and tell you you got to think a certain kind of way? I'm amazed that you weren't mad about that.
I'm not gonna say it upset me, just like I'm not letting you upset me. You know what I mean? I don't tend to get upset over things like that. But what I did say,
well, you just not talk about a nigger wake-up call, and it seemed to me that should have been a wake-up call on your part to have a white guy come in here who also said, by the way, about Mitt Romney. Because he didn't want to put more regulations on Wall Street, going to put y'all back in chains. And Joe Biden has lied for decades about his civil rights record, claiming that he desegregated movie theaters and restaurants in Wilmington, Delaware, when he didn't do any of that. He lied and said that he tried to visit Nelson Mandela during apartheid South Africa. He did not. And he came in here and told you aren't even black and let you think a certain kind of way. It seems to me that should have been a nigga wake-up call for you, but it wasn't, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, no, for the record, I'm not a Democrat or Republican.
I didn't say you were.
I think both.
I don't know what you are. I never even asked you about your party affiliation. I'm just saying, but you are black. And to have a white guy come in here and tell you have to say think a certain kind of way, otherwise you, quote, ain't black. Wow.
How should I have replied to him, you think?
What I just now said, how dare you insult me and tell me I think as a human being, let alone as a black person? I don't tell you how to think, Joe Biden. How dare you come in here and tell me how I should think? I'm going to vote for Donald Trump if I want to vote for Donald Trump. And if I want to vote for Donald Trump, it does not make me not black. 20% of black people, black men, as I said, voted for Donald Trump in 2020. Are they not black now? So only 80% of black people, black men walking around are really black, 20% are not because they voted for Donald Trump. How insulting is that? How condescending is that?
I mean, you're probably right, but I didn't take it in that way.
I did.
As I said to him in that moment, it's just about me wanting something for my people, and I want to know what is he going to do for my people, and not only for my people now, how are you going to atone for the things you've done to my people?
Right.
That's it. Right.
And this is a guy, Joe Biden, who, when he first got into the Senate, hung out with segregationists, talked about how well he got along with them, talked about how he didn't want integration because of a jungle. This guy has made all sorts of insulting things to black people, and his policies right now are hurting black people. Inflation hurts the people at the bottom more than anything else. Letting a bunch of illegal aliens into the border are hurting black people more than anybody else, as I said earlier. He opposes school choice when he has his own kids in private school, and we lost a year, almost 2 years of in-school education in California because of COVID that he supported. I mean, this guy has done monstrous things to black people, and then for him to come in here and tell you how you ought to think as a black person, it blew my mind.
As a person objectively who doesn't care about either party.
That's just like the biggest cop out ever. And I hate when people say that. It's like, oh, I don't really care about either party. It's like, no, yes, you do.
Right. I mean, he did care before when Joe Biden came on. What I like about Larry Elder is, no matter where he goes, whether it's an interview or podcast or anywhere else, dude's always armed with like stats or kind of facts that that people really want to hear or don't want to hear. Actually, he's always ready to speak out facts or any kind of evidence that he has with him. That's what I like about him.
Yeah, and he goes on shows that like most Republicans won't go, and this is actually like a bad week for like the Breakfast Club, the gayest radio show ever. Like, pretty much like trying to make conservatives like that are because this is what they really hate. They hate it when a minority is a conservative. Like they hate it that we're conservatives. Like how dare you vote for Donald Trump? Like I've had that experience. We both had it. Like for his me, like Trump wants to deport all the illegals. It's like, well, good. Like what do you mean? Like good. And then like if you want to vote like, oh, I like Donald Trump because I don't want to be a victim. Like would pretty much your stance, like, oh, I'm not in favor of the Democrats wanting to abort kids or changing genders, or because that's really what brought you into the conservative movement. It's like, oh, you just want to be white. It's like that has nothing to do with it. So it's like whenever they don't come at us with facts or with the news or with reality or history, they're not telling us that you're wrong because the Republicans did this to your people, or it doesn't even matter your people, because it's like I don't identify with Hispanic. First of all, I was born here. Like
Right.
It's just a coincidence that I was born in a Hispanic family. Like you were born Indian. There's nothing that you did or nothing special about it. but they feel like it's special. That's why I always hear like, well, my people, the black people. It's like, well, first off, what do you mean the black people? You mean who's black? Because there are Indians that are blacker than you, but you don't count them as Indian. You look at them as Asians, and then you mock them and make fun of them, and you're also racist to them. Like,
Right.
like when the reparations come, because they probably are going to come if there's another Democrat president. It's like, are black people gonna give part of the reparations to all the Indians and all the Pakistanis your people have committed crimes against? Like all the gas stations you guys go and make and filth up and like destroy and riot at? Like what happened in Ferguson? That Indian guy's business was pretty much ruined because of because of because of criminal black people. But for Charlamagne, that's not really that's just a way to express themselves. That's just
Right.
that's not. I don't understand when they say like, "Oh, that's culture." That's not culture. That's not culture. Like, I'll show you. There's another one because there's another one with what's his face?
I feel like Charlamagne is having a hard time trying to accept other people's facts and not just his. It looks like he just wants, oh, I'm just looking for my truth, not from anyone else's truth. Yeah.
All right, so here's another one where he was asking this woman who's on the show, they're all annoying, honestly. I don't really listen to.
Oh yeah, no, she was really annoying.
Yeah,
Oh
they're
my
all
God.
annoying because they're not looking to debate with him on any of the facts. They're not looking for any of the they're not looking to be convinced. They're not looking for any of that. They're just looking to be um pretty much they want to have that moment where they're like, I'm smarter than you, I'm better than you. They want that moment. They want you to mess up on any statistic.
Yeah.
They want you to fuck up on a name. They want you because that to them, in their mind, they think that mispronouncing a fact, not even a fact, it's like a detail of the fact, like maybe a year or a name. That to me makes you look as an idiot. Because we've debated with those people before. It's like you get one name wrong, or you get a year wrong, or you get an instance wrong. It's like, oh, you don't know anything because you don't know. It's like, no, I'm still right about what I'm saying. The point is still there. You're just too stupid to get it. So this woman who has the IQ of a used up condom is really just sitting here acting as if she's right, and she's not going to listen. She's not going to listen. So let's just listen to. We're gonna make you guys suffer here.
The system that we create. What financial?
Okay, let's talk about the system of one of the largest.
Let him say his point,
Thank you.
sir.
One of the systems of one of the largest cities in America, Baltimore. Freddie Gray died in police custody a few years ago. The mayor was black. The head of the police department was black. Number two.
It's not in charge of the system. But go ahead.
Number two person in charge of the police department was black. All
Still not in charge of the
all of
system.
city council, Democrats, majority black.
Still not in charge of the system.
Wow.
That's a position.
6 officers charged, 3 of them were black. A judge before whom 2 of the officers tried their case, found him not guilty, was black.
Still not in charge of the system.
The city intendant of public schools was black. The county superintendent of public schools was black. The attorney general at the time, Loretta Lynch, is black, as was the president of the United States, was black. And yet,
Still not in charge of the system.
who's in
I
charge of
asked
the
you a
system,
simple
Ted?
question, sir.
Well, Wanda Sykes said when Barack Obama got elected, how are you going to complain about the man when you are the man? Now, from the president to the attorney general to the state attorney to the mayor to the head of the police department to the commissions of the schools in the city and in the county to the majority of city council in that city, all of them are black. And you're still saying that we don't run anything?
I asked what system did we create? What financial
Okay, let's
system
talk
did we
about the
create?
system of one of the largest.
Let him say his point,
Thank you.
sir.
One of the systems.
Yeah. So this woman has like
Oh my God.
I didn't even want to listen. I had to like just. I had to.
My thing is, what system is she trying to talk about? Like, what she's not explaining correctly. Like, what system she's talking about?
They don't know what they want, but what they think they want is what they don't realize they had and then ruined themselves. And so, like, you ever hear when they talk about Tulsa and Juneteenth? It's like Tulsa. Well, Juneteenth is about the slavery thing.
Yeah.
Tulsa. You remember Tulsa? To them, they talk about Tulsa and then the fires and the riots because yes, there were racist people who, by the way, were Democrats, and that's not a long ass time ago. That was like 60 years ago at this point, 60, 70 years ago. I mean, these were things that happened. Like the Ku Klux Klan was active until what, the 1940s and 50s, pretty much, as an act.
Yeah.
They marched on the Democratic National Convention in 1916. The president wanted them there because the president was a major racist. He's the reason a Democratic president, Woodrow Wilson, set back this nation's civil rights decades back. I mean, we could have had desegregation in the 1910s, in the 20s even, but they didn't want that. Society was at that point, and we didn't need this massive legislation. But because of Democrats who were racist and were always racist, and historians don't like it when liberals look bad because they themselves are liberals. That's what they do. So don't. That's why I never really believe it's like. Well, the historians don't say it. Yeah, because the historians leave out things. They don't want themselves to look bad. Because if they say one nice thing about Woodrow Wilson, it's going to seem like they're also racist. But nowadays, people now know he was a racist.
Yeah.
And so,
Right.
like, they don't really know what they do. Like, if you listen to people like Walter Williams, you listen to people like Shelby Steele, you listen to people like Larry Elder, or especially Thomas Sowell, who have written about the history of African Americans in this country and what they've gone through. And then you read books about Booker T. Washington, and if you really want to read W.E.B. Du Bois, you can, but you're gonna lean then because he was a socialist, and not just a socialist, he was a communist. He's gonna lean into the route of that era, because that's where they go. I mean, people nowadays, I think more now, I think progressives like black progressives probably like Malcolm X probably more than Martin Luther King, because Martin Luther King's name has been pretty much muddied through the water through all these corporate mainstream Democrats that constantly talk about Martin Luther King, but they don't even know his message. Like, they don't understand. These were fundamentally conflicting their political views weren't like these people now, where it's like, I'm a Democrat and I vote blindly. Martin Luther King was neither a Democrat nor a Republican. He wasn't like you could say that he was probably more of a Republican at the time, because when he grew up, the Democrats were all racists, and there was still that tension. And yeah, blacks started voting for Democrats in the 30s with FDR, but they still knew, oh, well, that party is still racist because they're the party of the Ku Klux Klan. They're the party that started it. They're the party of Jim Crow. They knew it. They remembered it. Maybe they didn't talk about it all the time, but they knew it. And then in the 1960s, what happened? The Democrats changed their whole thing because they used Kennedy as a way of saying that they're no longer racist, but then that they still were racist because they thought that blacks needed a handout. That's, just imagine that. If you think someone needs a handout, you think they're poor, you think they're desperate, you think they're needy, you think that they can't handle things on their own, and you think that they're weak. That's why you give them a handout. That's why you think, that's what happens in your mind, because you don't give handouts to people that are strong. If you think a group is strong,
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
You don't see people handing out. Do we need to give handouts to Jews in New York? Do we need to give handouts to Asians in America? Do we need to give out handouts
They would
to
decline that shit. Yeah.
white people? No, they don't talk about that. They don't mention it. Why? Because the thought, when they think of them as self-providing. They can provide for themselves. They can handle things themselves. But they haven't undergone the same amount of suffering, if not more suffering, than blacks have in America. In America, they really only talk about blacks in America. You don't hear them talking about Africa. When has Charlamagne talked about blacks in America and in Africa? Never. He talks about them in America. Because Africans who come to this country don't like black people here. If we were really authentic about them being in the hood and how they're actually about the culture and they know black people, they will talk about that. They will talk about that because they know that's the truth. And then the Caribbean blacks don't like the black people here either. And it's vice versa. The feelings are mutual, but there's reasons for that. It's not because they're black. It's because of their cultural identity. It's like, there's a video, and I'm going to look for it while we're at it, about, you sent it to me the other day about this woman effectively got pissed off that Asians were using words, but she thought that they were about, they were actually for
Oh, right. Apparently, they were like stealing black culture or something like that.
said, you guys are stealing black culture. It's like, no, not really. He's not stealing anything. He's not stealing anything. You're just not intelligent. So here, I'm gonna share it now. I have it here, and
You just ramble shit, girl.
well, yeah, it's a Karen. She's freaking out. She's at an Asian place, I think boba tea place, and there's words that say trap. There's things that say chapo, and she thinks that that's black culture. She thinks that
Chapo.
I think there's that. There's trap. There's what else is in there?
Yeah, I know trap. Yeah,
Trap is in there. There's another one. There's a couple words. And so she says,
I don't remember.
culture. It's like, is that really?
I don't remember Chapo.
All right, let's play it.
Question: are you guys black owned?
We're not. No, we're all Indonesian.
Okay. Do you think using this, you guys are not using black culture to gain attention?
No.
Because you don't think this is black culture?
I think
Is this Asian? Is this Asian culture?
The common house is definitely an Asian culture.
No, but it's a trap house though. Is that Asian
not a trap
culture?
house.
Yes, it is.
That's the
Trap
I
tea.
can show you where it's at. I can show you where it's
Trap tea, the boba plug. You're using black culture to gain customers. This establishment is not black owned, but you're stealing black culture. Is this not black culture? Trap tea, the boba plug? No, you're thieves. Asian people stealing black culture once again. It's okay, you'll be exposed though. You're not black owned, you're stealing black culture.
Thank you for coming.
Black culture.
Thank you for coming.
No, I came here because I thought it was black owned. That's why I came here. I told my friends I'm supporting a black business. This is not black owned. This is not black owned. Asians stealing black culture. Once again, you're a host. Don't talk.
I'm a coon.
I came here. Because I didn't know it was black owned.
You already said
I already did. But
I'm tired of people.
because you're a coon.
I'm glad he called her out, but then she said the same. Oh, you're a coon. It's like, bitch, you don't know anything. You could even spell coon.
He's fun black.
He's black, but she's trying to say that you're a coon for not saying anything. So like he's calling her out by saying, "Can you shut the fuck up and leave? Like this is not like black culture." She's like, "Well, you're a coon. You're a coon." It's like I hate when people say that. It's like black people are the only people that do this. They're the only people that do this. They're the only pathetic group that because it's pathetic. Race is in their mind 24/7. They feel their existence. It's like that pretty girl who has no personality except that she's pretty. It's them. It's that they have no identity, they have no culture outside that they're not black. So if they think that's it, they're black. That's it. They have no personality, but they think that being black should be sufficient for them. But they can't define it. It's like, look, yes, you're black, but that's like embrace that. But then if you say something like, oh, like fried chicken and watermelon, oh, that's racist. But if you say, oh, Mexicans love tacos, that's not racist. That's not racist. But if I say, hey, blacks like oh, you guys like black and mild, it's like, oh, that's racist. That's a stereotype. That's racist. But you guys make fun of Indian people when they wear turbans and they do all that shit. Like that's them. And why do I say that? Because I've seen it. We've seen it. We live in a majority black community. Like that's what they are. They're racist. But they see themselves as these eternal victims that what's happened to them has not happened to any other group. So she says like Asian people stealing black culture. It's like you do realize that Chinese people throughout history have been far more oppressed and far more repressed than any African people in the world. Like Africans have a culture. Chinese people also have culture, but historically, the Chinese have been starving, uneducated, poor as fuck. Like poor as fuck. Like they don't have anything for centuries. Like the people talk about the Chinese kingdom, the Chinese emperor. Do they not realize that the Chinese empire was poor as fuck? Everybody in China, except if you were in the military or served in Peking in the capital, was poor. Everybody was poor. This is not those samurai movies about them jumping around and being ninjas and go. No, they were poor as hell. Poor. They didn't know how to read. A lot of them didn't know how to read. They did not know math, and they did not have a lot of food. But guess what? In Africa, for a lot of years, yes, the colonization is real, but China has had a lot of colonization. Japan literally killed millions of Chinese. It was called Manchuria for a while. That was Japanese occupied China. That was a horrible time, and it didn't last a long time. That was only like a decade, really, or a couple of years. That was even horrible.
Mm-hmm.
So when they mention, it's like they try to find these competing atrocities, like nothing as bad. Like if you mention to someone black today, if you mention to Charlamagne or that retarded bitch on the show, if you mention the Holocaust, they'll say, oh, but in the Belgian Congo, Leopold had 20-something Africans murdered. It's like, well, he didn't have them murdered. This was colonization. They were sent to work camps to extract minerals, and they died there. That's what happened. This was not a hate crime because they were black. That's the difference. That's why, like, I understand, like, a lot of people died, yes. And by the way, before you get on to your high horse, they don't give a shit about them because they're only mentioning this now because they recently found out that this happened. But this was known for years.
Right.
But now that they found out, they're saying, well, don't talk to me about the Holocaust because what about the Africans that died in the Congo? You don't care about them. It's like, well, neither do you. Neither do you. Because if you cared about atrocities being committed against minorities, and by the way, those people aren't minorities. The only place that minorities is really word is America, because black people require themselves to be seen as minorities.
They just want to victimize themselves,
wanna
just lower them standards so they can just
they
blame
view
white
themselves
people
as
for
big.
everything.
And so that's why they need. That's why today you hear that woman saying, "We need a system. We need a system." Well, what system do you want?
Yeah, like what system are you talking about specifically?
Well, what they want is
yeah, exactly like what they want. Yeah, exactly.
what they want is capitalism, but rigged for black people, not for whoever has the most skills or whoever has the most money, or whoever comes from rich families, like what it's kind of rigged to today, or corporate capitalism. What they want is black capitalism. They want black people to be the wealthy people throughout society. They want to be the people that own Gucci and Louis Vuitton. They want to be the most paid athletes. They want to be the most paid actors. They want to be the people with the most. They would love it. If there was a majority Senate, if the Senate was filled with black people and the House was filled with black people, they wouldn't be complaining. This is what they want. They want South Africa. They want the ability to do what a few white people in the 1800s did to them. A few, because not everyone in the South owned slaves. I think it's about 3 to 5% of people in the South owned slaves. I think it's about 9% of white people in the South own slaves. It's not a big number. You can look it up. It's like a very small, it's like a single digit number of white people in the South own slaves. Why? Because owning slaves was expensive. It was a luxury by that time. Like, it was extremely expensive to own the plantation and own slaves, because you have to, like, and I'm not justifying it, but if you want to talk about facts, these are the facts, because they like to blame white people for everything. And they like to blame all white people. If you're white, you're guilty. It's like, but I'm from the Netherlands. No, you're guilty because you had to do something. Because black people after like the 1950s, and they listened to Martin Luther King, and they followed the Black Panthers, and then they followed the Nation of Islam, and all those people were poisoned with this elixir of rotten Marxism. Like W.E. Du Bois was a big. They didn't compete, but they were ideologically opposed as to what black people should do in the 1910s and in the 1890s and 1880s. It's like Booker T. Washington talked about his experience as a slave, and he thought that the only way to prosper was through hard work and getting over it. It's like, yeah, we're not forgetting, but the only way you're going to get there is through getting hard work, learning skills, and advancing your own communities. But this other group of black people, led by W. Du Bois and others through the Renaissance, the Black Renaissance, because the real Renaissance, let's not call it, happened in Italy and in Europe in the 1500s, 1600s, like not U.S. A lot of them, like W. Du Bois, was paraded himself as an oppressed black, but he was born his family came from, he was the grandson or the son of a slave owner. Like, a slave owner had sex with a black slave, and that was his mother, and that, like, he grew up in that type of area. And he was so oppressed that in the midst of his adulthood and his career, he was invited in the early 1900s to a communist meeting in Turkmenistan. In America, he flew to Turkmenistan, probably paid for by communists. And he went there. And he spoke with communists, Soviets, Russian communists, German communists, Asian communists. They had a little convention there. He was there. And he was so oppressed in America that they let him take a flight. They let him make money so that he could get a plane ticket and go there. Or he flew by ship, probably, which is still expensive. So he took a ship and went to Turkmenistan, which is probably a day's long travel. Because there were no planes then. There was no airliners. Imagine, he was so oppressed that he did that. But still, they're oppressed because, remember, the Marxist trope is that in history there are two groups. There are the victims, the oppressed, and then there are the victimizers. So the victimizers, because they became wealthy, by taking away from the victim. The victims are victims because the oppressors took something from them, and that's why they're wealthy. The difference between now and then is that back then that was a class difference, but now they've changed it. They've reformed it into saying blacks are oppressed because white people took something or did something to them to oppress them and keep them down. So that's why she wants a system. What she wants is what Malcolm X wanted at first. And they did this through a violent way, which was the Nation of Islam. They were violent. That was their way. That's why Malcolm X and his crew were very opposed to Martin Luther King, because Martin Luther King was all about non-violence, about peaceful protest. What they don't do now, because they've all adopted that. They don't want to admit it, but they've all adopted this. Because Malcolm X, after he kind of repented on everything before he was assassinated. He kind of regretted those kind of things. And pretty much he left the Nation of Islam mainly because he saw the Nation of Islam as becoming a business, wanted to make money off of the movement, like most things. And he cared about black people, but he just didn't agree with the violence and etc. What they want is this sort of, I've mentioned it before, but it's black nationalism. It's black nationalism. It's this idea that black communities like Harlem, like Compton, like Camden, like Newark, that businesses in these areas should be owned by black people, and that the decisions being made in communities that have high amounts of black people should be made by black people. The schools should be led by black people. The teachers should be black. The nurses, the doctors should be black. The businesses should be black. They shouldn't be Indians. If there's a gas station in Harlem, it should be owned by a black man or a black woman, and that money should remain in Harlem. But that's not the truth, but they live in a fantasy, because if a black man has money and he lives wealthily, and we know people that are black, or we've heard of them that are black and they're wealthy, they don't live in Harlem. They don't live in Camden. They don't live in Newark. They don't live in Philadelphia. They don't live in Compton. They don't live in Detroit. They don't live in Chicago. They don't. They live in Ann Arbor, or they live outside of Chicago, or they live in Brooklyn, or they live in Astoria, or they live in Chelsea, or they live in Soho, they live in Mid-Manhattan, or they live in Jersey City, or they live in Hoboken, or they live in Morristown, Mendham, or they live in Cherry Hill, Morristown. They don't live in the black communities. They live out of them. Why? Because it's still violent, because it's dirty, because it's not safe for them. So the money is never there, because they're not raising the real estate value. And what's to say that a black man owns a corner store? That's supposed to give money to the community? What is he supposed to do? Give away shit for free? But no, it's not.
They're not rich like that when they own a corner store.
It's not that. What they want is the ability to have some sort of power. They want the feeling that they own something, because in their little pathetic minds, they feel that they're nothing because they've been victims. But they weren't. Charlamagne's not the victim of anything. He's not. He can't be the victim. He's a multi-millionaire radio host. He's a millionaire. He's not poor. So is the other chick who's probably not a millionaire, but she makes hundreds of thousands of dollars in her net worth. So neither is, and we talk about it, neither is Beyonce, neither is Jay-Z, neither is what's her face, Oprah, neither is Meghan Markle, neither is Kamala, neither is LeBron James or Dwayne Wade, or none of them are victims. Victims of what? That your father left you when you were a young man? But that's not a white man's fault. It's not. It's his fault. That's your dad's fault. Not white culture, not the patriarchy's fault. No, that's your fault. Not your fault, but that's his fault. Is it your fault? Is it my fault or any white person's fault that people in Harlem are poor? No. It's not their fault that they're addicted to weed and that they like to do coke and they like drinking Casamigos, which is expensive, and they shouldn't be buying it because they're broke. It's not our fault that they like to have unprotected, unmarried sex all the damn time, and like to have baby mamas and side hoes, which take up money and time, and they don't have a job, and that they're stupid and never got educated in high school, and didn't go to college to learn any other skills, or never went to trade school, or have a real job, and so they think that that's not white people's fault. You did that. Nobody white put a gun to your head and said you can't be that because you're black. but they don't. They walk around every single day. And I've met black kids. I used to sit with black kids in college in class, and they had this aura that they were slighted. They felt they were slighted. They felt that somebody somewhere down the line did something to them, but no one ever did anything to them. They made their own decisions. Like,
Wait, did what? What do you mean?
they felt that they were slighted. They felt, as black people, you always hear that, as black people, I feel that they felt that they were victims of something. They felt that white people, white culture, white society, down the line somewhere, something happened to them, that's why their life turned out the way it was. But it's not that way. It's your fault your life turned out the way it was. You know what I mean? Like, it's
Okay.
responsibility, not I'm a victim of this cosmic thing that happened that for some reason I got. No. That's not what happened. That's not what happens here. So
Right.
it's always aggravating to hear people talk like that. It's so aggravating. But
No,
what
it
she
is.
wants is, and so, but see how he mentions the mayor of Baltimore is black, the chief of police is black, 3 of the cops that were indicted were black, the judge was black, the jury was most likely majority black, and if not, it had black people on there. The school attendant is black, the county clerk is black, the county superintendent is black. The council members are all black. The police force has a lot of black people on it. The fire chief, he said, was black. It's like, what else do you want? The president at the time was black. You had a congressman. The congressman who leads that district of Baltimore, he died, Elijah Cummings. He was black. You guys voted for the Democrat. You guys voted for Barack Obama twice. Like, the attorney general at the time, Elijah,
And they still blame
Loretta Lynch.
the system of what they're talking
black. Everyone was black. It's like, but she's like, but the system. That doesn't mean that we run the system. We don't. Well, who runs the system then? And what she's trying to say is the system. When they say the system, is because they think that America is rigged against the black people. That there's a system of deep with racism. That as soon as black people are born, the system goes to oppress them from day one. That they won't be anything. But that woman is black, and she's on a radio show that transmits to the entire tri-state area, and she's made hundreds of thousands of dollars, and she doesn't live in Harlem. She doesn't live in Jackson Heights. She doesn't live on Dyckman. She doesn't live in the Bronx. She does not. She probably lives in New Jersey or in Brooklyn or in Manhattan or in Queens somewhere down on, or in Long Island or Staten Island. Like, she doesn't live in a poor area. Charlamagne the God, he lives in a mansion or he lives in an apartment. Like, he does not live badly. I can assure you of that. So what system prevents
his net worth's 10 million. So
10 million? There you go.
He's living good. He's living good.
Stephen A. Smith from ESPN. He doesn't live in New York City. He lives in Jersey. He lives in Jersey in a mansion. His mom lives in a mansion because he bought his mom a mansion. His sisters live with his mom in mansions. So we're like, tell me this. Did the system go like, what happened to the system when you got all your money? But that's just no. But that's just because I knew what to do. So what? All black people are just stupid? They're all stupid. You can't tell them what to do? Or is it that most black people, just like a lot of Hispanics do, and just like a lot of people in the world do, regardless of their color or race or gender or whatever the fuck they want to identify themselves as, maybe they made the wrong decisions in their lives, got with the wrong people, had the wrong friends, didn't do well in school, had no skills to have any other income. It's like, if you have no skills in the workplace, if you can't do anything, guess what? You're going to have a shitty job. You're going to work at Walmart. Because if you can change pipes, if you can solder pipes, if you can take down drywall, and you can change, you can be a plumber. And you're not going to be poor. You're going to make a very good living. You're not going to be rich like Charlamagne, but you're going to make a good living, and you can buy a house. But like, that's a job. But guess what? The black culture says that you have to be an athlete. You have to be a celebrity. You have to be a rapper. You have to be in a gang. You have to talk about trap. You have to talk about like the plug. You got to talk about weed. You got to talk about hoes. You got to talk about bitches. Like, that's the culture. That's the culture. That's the culture that they want. But that's not the culture that every other succeeding demographic has. Hispanics, what's their culture? It's diverse. Hispanics are very diverse, so it's very different that way. But the Mexicans and Central Americans, their culture is all about working hard We do construction, not because we have to, but because that's what we're good. That's the skills that we have. It's like they're not pretending to be doctors when majority of them aren't doctors. Like their children are becoming doctors. The children of those immigrants become doctors because now they're Americans. But the people that immigrate here, they work at car washes, they work at construction, they do drywall, they do landscaping, they do lawn care, they do construction in landscaping. There is construction. That's what they do. Not because they have to, not because the white man forced them, but because they have the skills. They know how to use power tools. They know how to do that. They know how to use the machinery. And they work hard because that's in their culture already. That machismo culture is all about hard work, working on the land. They want to do things with their hands. It's like that's their culture, or it used to be their culture. So that's why they do that. Not because the white man forced them to, because guess what? A lot of them do those type of jobs in their own countries. You don't think there's tons of Colombians in Colombia that do construction and then do construction here too? That's not because the white men did that. That's because they have the skills to do that. They have the skills to use power tools. They know how to use forklifts. So when they come here, they find good paying jobs using the skills they know. But if black people don't have skills outside of banging hoes and smoking weed that don't make you any money, it's like, I can't help you. Then there's nothing nobody can do that can help you. No government check through a reparation will help you. Because guess what? The reason you're poor is because you got money and then spent it on bullshit. So as soon as you get reparations, you're going to spend it on bullshit. And then you're going to be poor again. And then who are you going to blame? The new generation of white people? Damn shame. It's a damn shame. But it's their fault they're this way, and it's their fault they're going to stay this way because they're not smart. And it's not because they're black. It's because not only are they black, but in their livelihood, they did not learn, refuse to learn, and their culture does not help them. When you have a culture that focuses on sports, sex, drugs, and music, what are you going to get? You think doctors and mathematicians and engineers are coming out of that? No. You're going to get hoes, drug dealers, failed rappers, and what's the first thing? And a bunch of failed athletes that are now working for UPS. That's what you're going to get. Because only the best of the best get to the top. The best of the best get to the NBA, not everybody. The best of the best get to the NFL, not all the black quarterbacks and linebackers and wide receivers. Not all of them get there. Not all of them make the cut. Not everyone can be Beyonce.
Nope.
So that's on them. All right, so let's move on to your other topic here, Deep.
Amen, Louis. Amen.
Gracias. Praise be to He. So we're gonna talk about the fags. The fags.
The faggots.
But yeah, it's like these people.
Watch them try to cancel us. It's like, bro, why are you trying to cancel us? We'll get like 80 subscribers. Like, come on, relax.
Did you send me more videos of
I think it's on a couple of them.
on IG or on
Probably IG.
start talking to us about since you want to handle this talk us about what have you seen? What did you wanted to talk about something in particular about gays and parents and trans?
Well, I kind of want to talk about like parents and also teachers' obsession of changing kids' pronouns and telling them, like, especially like little boys and girls, it's okay to be another gender. And I always wonder, why is this such an obsession? Like, what are they trying to get out of doing that to kids? Is it to make them happy? Is it to make them feel like heroes? Make like tell little kids that, oh, in life you always gotta be happy. But how does that work? Doesn't make any sense. So yeah, I think I sent a couple to Lewis. I just don't remember where.
Yeah, so pretty
I
much
know I did it mostly on IG.
It's this whole movement nowadays from the transgenders that is not only are they going to be gay, but your children are going to be gay, and your children are going to be targeted, and that's what they did. And it started really off with drag queens, and then the teachers, because the teachers were all or mostly liberals. They're all liberals, by the way. 95% of them are liberals. There's no conservative teacher out there because they just don't have that patience. So I'm going to show a video here of this one. You know this one. You sent me this a while back, but I just found it.
Yeah, we kind of did like a little
Rant?
reaction to this. Oh yeah, that
It's a
one.
gay baby. Gay baby. Gay. Please be gay. Gay.
Oh, that guy's handsome. Damn.
Yeah, apparently he's not natural anymore. So, um, yeah, I every time I see that, it's like, what do you get out of that? And especially you're over there recording yourself. I feel like everyone these days want to be actors in their own way, like through TikTok and Instagram and
Well,
you know
it's all
all that. But then
it's all
and then
egomaniac.
they bring in their own little kids, their own babies. They can't speak. They know how to think. You know, they're little kids, and then they're over here claiming though, oh, he's gay. Well, how do you know that? The baby said he's gay. I'm gay. I'm gay. Like like it's so dumb. Like every time I see that, it's like, come on, man.
Well, it's a big mixture of all things. It's like whenever successful societies or civilizations, whenever they start going downhill, they become decadent because the societies essentially focus on insane things, not upkeeping what they should be doing. I mean, the Romans went through this, the Greeks went through this, the Byzantines they went through this. It's like they started arguing about
Yeah,
things that don't
yeah.
matter, and these are things that don't matter. They don't make sense. It's like 1,000 years down the line, if human beings still exist, it's like or higher an advanced species. Don't tell scientists that they think they're the advanced species, but these people are going to be looked at as like, oh, I see where they went wrong. They started letting these people teach their future generations. It's like this person right here. It's like this person. I mentioned earlier. It's like their identity is now what they're like. They don't have anything else except that they're gay. Their gayness is their entire personality. It's their entire identity. It's like they're no longer a man. They're not. They want to transcend that because they have nothing interesting in their lives. They're not interesting people. They're boring. They have no personality. They don't have any skills. They don't have any friends. They don't have anything off. They don't have anything to offer their own society. And so, what's the only thing they can do? And because they have those fears and anxieties, and because they've suffered with depression or mental health problems, or maybe they're schizophrenic anyways, they then.
Are you talking about parents or like
I'm
school
talking
kids?
about people, and those people become parents. So that person did
Okay.
not that person did not have a kid and then do that. No. Parents are people, obviously. But that person was like that before they were a parent, after they're a parent. That person's like that. That's what I mean. It's like
Right.
this person may adopt a child one day, and then you just can't say, well, is the parent like that? No, they were like this already. This person has problems
But
in their own personal life. And so what they're doing is that they find a way to pretty much express themselves, and what they do is that they become gay because then that brings attention on them in a positive light. They're egomania. It's like it's also they're psychopaths, they're sociopaths. They care only about themselves. They don't care about anyone else except themselves. And so they have to because
hey,
they have nothing to
you ever
offer.
go ahead.
They
Keep
have
going.
nothing to offer to
No,
society
no,
because they're losers. They become gay. They become trans. They become non-binary. Things that aren't real. They're not real. They're satanic. They're disgusting. They're fringe things that happen. Like being not being trans today is like, oh, I just identify as a woman. They don't even go through the operations. We talked about this on like on a prior episode. It's like back in the day in the ancient Greek and Roman times, there were people that were called transvestites. There were men that pretended to be women. They did that in jest as a joke. They weren't a political movement. They weren't a societal movement where now they feel like I've always been this way. No, it's not. You have mental health problems. There's something in your mind that makes you think this is your way. And it's because you have an ego. You want the center of attention to be on you always. That's why you do it. That's why you announce it. You don't see people announcing
yeah.
things in their ordinary lives like, oh, I just had a bagel. You only do that when we see people doing that, posting things about themselves like, hey, I just got fucked in the ass. It's like, no, you do that because you want attention. You want the whole world to know. But we don't need to know.
All right.
Like this. If you think this is about me and you care about, because these people, by the way, they care about their privacy. They care about their own privacy. They care about that, people shouldn't know everything about me. But you make posts like this that I'm not a disease. Yeah, you are a disease. A disease is also you. And you know you, a disease.
Mm-hmm.
And you can also love yourself, a disease. You can love a disease. Like there are people that love their addictions. People love being addicted to sex. They love being addicted to porn. They love it. It's still a disease though. It's like you
Yeah.
remember that
Right.
Ugandan interview with that guy, and the pastor was like, "This is a mental illness," and the
Oh
trans
yeah.
was like, "My parents support me," and the interview was like, "Your parents support having a mental disorder," and that's so hilarious to me. But yeah, that's what it is. It's like at the end of the day, you can say anything you want, you can make any excuse you want about this is me, I love myself, but it doesn't change that you still have a mental disorder that makes you think this way. And because you're a maniac and because you have anxiety, you try to express that in very unusual ways, which is sometimes you're bipolar, sometimes you're violent, but no, you're just gay and you wear a duck on your head because you're insane and you have no friends and you have no life and you have no hobbies and you have no skills and you have no interest that anyone else likes. You're just gay. But this person has probably never had sex with a man. They're not gay. They just want to be gay because they want attention. That's what I feel. It's like politicians. They're a little bit like politicians. That's why a lot of them kind of love each other because they're sociopaths. They like to be the center of attention because if not, they couldn't survive in any other way. There's no other job they could have. There's no other thing they could do. They need
Oh right. Yeah.
and they like to remind you all the time about who they are and what they do and how important they are. They like to remind you. I always see these videos of these trans people that are like, I have suffered more than anybody else. Me, have gone through so much. I'm the bravest person I know and that you know. Because it's like, no, you're not, though. You're not, though. You're just the most
Like,
self-centered person I know. And the most egomaniac person I know. And you're addicted to attention. You have an addiction. You have a mental health problem. It's like we go back to Anthony Weiner when you refused to talk about how he didn't want to admit that his addiction was to attention because he's a
yeah.
psychopath.
Yeah.
That's what
He
it is.
did not want to admit that at all. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
but that's exactly what same thing it is. You have an addiction to attention because maybe your mommy didn't love you. Maybe you have no friends. Maybe you have no interest. Maybe nobody likes you because you might also be an asshole of a person. But you don't want to fix that. The problem is the world. That's why they say, I love me. Me, that's me. I'm fine. I don't have to change it. The world needs to accept me. It's like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't need to accept you. And when they realize that, they now think, oh, I suck. So I need to change that by putting a facade on it. It's being gay. But they're probably not even gay. It's just that they want a new identity because they suck as a person. And once again, that's their fault.
Yo, it's funny you mentioned that. 'Cause every time we're with our friends, majority of our friends are like liberals,
Yeah.
and they would always ask us the same questions over 5 fucking times. I'm not gonna mention the names, but they would ask you this: what would you do if your kids are gay? Would you accept that? Would you accept your kid to be gay, or change its pronoun, or identify a fucking monkey or something?
Well, they asked me that one time you weren't there, and they did not expect this response. And I told them, well, whose dime are they doing this? Are they living in my house, paying no bills, paying no rent, eating my food, sitting on my couch, shitting in my toilet, and trying to tell me that I have to pay for their surgery? Hell the fuck no. Do whatever the fuck you want when you're an adult. See, I'm okay with it if you're an adult. If you're 19, 18, 19 years old and you're not living in my home and you want to be trans and gay, go ahead, do whatever the fuck you want. Do it. That's you. My legal responsibility is done. I hope by that time I have taught you and instilled the values in my children that I think they need to have to be successful, capable, non-victims in the world. If they're 14 years old and they think that's who they are, you can wait until you're 18 years old when you leave this home. You can do whatever the fuck you want with your own money. Get health insurance, make them pay it, go to the military, they'll pay for it because they're gay now. Let them do it. I'm not going to do it. I don't have to. I can support you, but I don't have to pay for it. See, that's what they hate because the parents don't pay. They want mommy and daddy to bust their ass so that their children can go into the world and guess if they're gay or if they're a woman or if they're a man. But if you tell them, well, you have money, don't you pay for it? You don't support me. That's what they do. That's what they do.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So that was.
And then they'll probably put it on social media as well. And if
my daddy doesn't support me, I'll just say, I don't support you. I don't support paying for it all the time. You're living in my goddamn house, paying no bills. I'm supposed to pay for your surgery. I'm supposed to pay for things you need to do. I'm supposed to pay for your hobbies. Go get a job, do it if that's what you want. If you're fat and you want to be skinny, what do? You get a job so you can pay for a gym membership, and you can buy
Work
food
for
that's
it.
healthy. You don't go to your parents and
Yeah.
say, "Mom, Dad, pay for my liposuction."
Right.
No, you don't. No, you don't go there. Pay for my obesity doctor because I need to go on 600-pound life, or I need to go to the doctor because I'm fat, or I need to buy a wheelchair. No, you need to do that because that's you. That's your life. That's your fault. You know how you love yourself and that you am me and that you're not a disease. Well, go out there and go do what you want to do. Like that's what I told them. Not on my dime. What the fuck? I got to pay for your own lifestyle decisions and pay for your food and your rent and your clothes, and I have to raise you too. Not on my dime. Get the fuck out of here. When you're 18, you can move.
What would the reaction when you told them that?
Oh well, one of them said, "Oh, that's a good point," and then the other one thought about it, was like, "Oh yeah, that's you know what? I never thought about it that way. I think you're right." They said I was right because guess what? The fuck I am right. I have to fund your self vanity project because you also know that a lot of them detransition or regret transitioning. So what? I got
Yeah,
to
exactly. Yeah.
transition. You're gonna come to me. So my son Charlie, who's now Charlene, is gonna come back to me saying, Daddy, I'm no longer Charlene. I want to be Charlie again." Oh, we'll pay for it. Go
Oh,
ahead.
waste of fucking money.
Be whoever the fuck you want, but not in my home and not on my dime. I have to pay for this? Because see, you're living in my house. I get it. You want to be with the family, but I have to pay for this home. I have to pay the mortgage. I have to pay the tax. I have to pay the bills.
You're already
I'm
doing everything.
providing. So I'm doing most of this. I now have to pay for your surgery. No, get the fuck out of here. Do it on your own dime. Go live in your own Go live in your own goddamn gay house. I'll tell them that. Not on my dime. No, you can do it. And before that. But see, it's people like to talk about the moment it comes. What about the years before that? What about the years before this came to be? The
Yeah.
people that decide one day to the other that they're this are either lying to you and to themselves or are actually mentally retarded. Because no human being with a functioning brain does that. They don't. That just doesn't happen.
It's not. It wasn't a norm when we were in elementary. It was not a normal kind of lifestyle when we were in elementary and middle school. We've never heard stuff like that. So it's like it doesn't process in our brain that, oh yeah, I'll let my kid change their gender when they're 4 years old. Yeah, they can be gay when they're 5 years old. Yeah, go ahead. It's America. Live a free life. We all should be happy. It's not even processed through our brain because we understand reality way more than whatever reality they live in. So it's like when he asked me that question, what would you do if you're I forgot what was the age. Let's say like 8-year-old. What would you do if your 8-year-old decides to be a trans? It's like, do you really think an 8-year-old can think like an adult?
No.
It's like,
It's also like-
do you really think that I'm gonna let my kid do that? I don't want my kids to go through any kind of shit like that. I want to be a boy to be a boy, a girl to be a girl. That's it. And it's my job as a father to raise them better. You know?
But what it is
It's like why add the extra stress in their life? And then later on they're gonna fucking regret it. It's like, oh, I regret so bad. Like I just don't want to do it anymore. Like I just want to kill myself. It's like,
Exactly. But you know what it is that to answer your first part of your question, it's like, remember, we were raised in a world that no longer exists. We were raised for a world, like maybe me, but we were raised for a world that no longer exists. We were raised with traditional values. We believed that there was a man and a woman got married. There were gay people there, but they
Yeah.
were fringe. They were there, and they were atheists, but they were fringe. They were there, and eventually, you grew up with the belief that in your teenage and 20s you're gonna be a liberal, but when you turn 40, when you turn 30, when you have a family or own a home, or at whatever age, you're gonna turn into a conservative. It was that belief system. It was that belief that you joined the military because you believe in the country, but there's a multitude of factors as to why that's no longer the case. Yes, government, distrust, corruption of politicians. I mean, there's an example here. In England in the 1950s, there was a scandal called the Profumo affair. It was a scandal. So the conservative government, not the prime minister, but a cabinet secretary, a minister, was caught having a sex affair with multiple people. This was a person that went to sex parties, and many members of the government were involved in it, and the government lied because that man lied. That man lied. I remember watching it. If you watch The Crown, you get a little a glimpse of it. It's a little biased, but there's a glimpse of it. Because
Right.
The Crown leans is very very favorable to the labor governments, not to the
Hmm.
not to the conservative ones, unless it's Winston Churchill, but to the Tory ones, they're not that favorable. But to labor, yeah. What happened there is that the entire society flipped on its head for the first time in a long time. They had heard of people in power, of course, being not as proper as they should, but they've never seen it out in the public like that. They've never seen a government minister effectively bring down an entire government for sex scandal, for drugs. They'd never seen that. That was something in society. Remember, that society was they believed more in God. They believed more in. Of course, they were at the tail end of that. Less people did, but still, that was like the end of that society. And then that sex scandal hit. And then in America, I don't know if we had that. Maybe we had Bill Clinton. Maybe that was part of it. But it was also a society that no longer believes in God as it does. Churches are less filled today that they are in most of America, except for the South. But in the Northeast, I mean, there are people that don't go to church, just don't, including yours truly. And I believe in God and I pray every day now, but you just don't. People just don't go to church, and so there's a lot of factors for it. I mean, it's like the parents grew up in a civilization in a generation where you heard of love everybody, accept everybody, be peace, no war, masculinity, but they never said it in the outright. But they grew up in a feminist culture where it was women rule, women are smart. Women not only are they smart, but they're smarter than men. And that's why you also hear a lot of these same people saying we don't need men, but you do, because when there's a hurricane, who's going out there to fix the power lines? I mean,
Yeah.
women could do it, but you very well know they're not gonna. They're not gonna, because they're gonna cry and say,
There's gonna be
"Where's the
there's gonna be a
man?"
small percentage of women that can actually do it, but then the rest are just a bunch of fucking people.
Yeah, they're gonna be
Sit
crying.
around and just like don't know what to do.
They're gonna be crying, and so it's a cultural problem. It's a big cultural problem as to why things are like this. So I can't pinpoint.
And it's and I'm like at a point where it's like if they're gonna ask me that kind of same question, like some random stranger, and said, "What would you do if your kid's a gay?" I'm like, "Well, why do they have to be gay? Like, what is it? What is it that they can bring to the table if they become gay?" You know, I it goes deeper. I'll stick with what I said.
All right, we'll save it for.
But it goes deeper. It goes deeper into the generational thing, but
We'll
it just doesn't
talk
make
about
sense.
that next
That's what
episode, because we got to wrap up here. We're pretty much out of time now.
Right.
But we'll talk about that next episode. We'll talk more about the gays. The gays. All right. So I do hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I want to remind you guys, like, subscribe. Please subscribe. Tell your friends to subscribe. And if you want more bonus content, there's our Patreon. It's patreon.com/4, the number 4 the Republic. I want to thank everybody listening audio only on Spotify, Apple, iTunes, Deezer, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, etc., Pandora. Everywhere you get your podcasts, that's where we are, and always for the Republic. Karen has his gaming channel, so you can check that out at Crimson Gaming. Again, like, subscribe, hit that notification button so you can stay up to date with all of our fresh content. And once again, Karen Deep, what's also very important?
Make sure you guys trace this because it's very important. I don't know why it's important, but stay racist.
Yeah. In our Patreon, Candy's going to talk about his trip to the Blackface Festival in Congo. So see you guys next time, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. See you next time. Bye.